Planning Commission of the Town of Abingdon to order. Welcome to the Town of Abingdon Planning Commission regular meeting. We appreciate your interest and we encourage public participation in our meeting. Your comments are important to our decision-making process. There'll be two opportunities during the meeting for you to address the commission members. The first will be when I ask for public comment after the approval of minutes. And the second will be if there is a public hearing, once the public hearing is called to order. We would ask that anyone who wishes to address the commission come forward, give their complete name and address. And we would ask that in terms of public hearings that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. Roll call.
Ms. Quetch? Here. Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Weaver?
Here.
Mr. Pennington? Mr. Sproles?
Here.
Mr. Wilson?
Here.
And Mr. Schuman?
Here. All right, next order of business is approving the minutes. They're kind of lengthy. Everybody has had an opportunity to review them. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? I didn't see any. If there are not, is there a motion that we approve the minutes as submitted?
I'll make a motion to approve as submitted.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Johnson, there's a second?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Quetch, second. Any additional discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The next order of business is public comment for items not on the agenda. I don't know, did anybody sign up or anything? So, okay, we'll move on from public comment. The next order of business is certificate of appropriateness, special use permit, Town Center of Abingdon, 396 Town Center Drive, Abingdon, Virginia, 24210. Stephen Spangler, 1 Food City Circle, Abingdon, Virginia, 24210. Representative Kevin Rasnick, Appalachian Design Services Surveyor, applicant for subdivision located at 396 Center Drive, Abingdon, Virginia, tax map ID, parentheses, 20-12-5 in parentheses. Staff report.
Steve Christopher, Town of Abington. So yes, the request is for Town Center of Abington LLC owner and Stephen Spangler applicant has requested a subdivision of 396 Town Center Drive, Abingdon. The applicants have said that there will be no visual differences in the parking, access, or easements between the two properties. There will be no additional construction. The primary goal for this request is to divide the existing parcel into 2 pieces in anticipation of a grant being granted to renovate the old Kmart building into a usable space for the community.
Okay.
Staff findings: for grade streets and alleys, none were proposed, they were already built. Roadways, none were proposed, they were already built. Sidewalks, none were proposed, there was already a kind of sidewalk in front of all the storefronts. For water lines, they're already built, sewers are already built, storm drains are already built, and street lighting's already built. So pretty much everything's already there, it's just a simple subdivision of the lot into 2 parcels.
Okay. Let the record show that Mr. Pennington is here.
Apologies.
Mr. Spangler, do you want to?
Stephen Spangler, resident of Bristol, Tennessee, although I work out of the Food City Circle, Abingdon, Virginia. Here to answer any questions that the board may have. In short, we're under contract to sell this particular portion of the shopping center, and it's a seller obligation to have it subdivided. So that's why we're here, but happy to answer any questions you may have.
I have a question. There is a, I can't tell at this scale, but there's either a sanitary or storm in the front, along the front of the Kmart building, and then it goes along the front of the strip center. Is there gonna be, I don't see any easement or anything for it. I don't know what that is.
We can have that added. You know, there's going to be a declaration of easements and covenants and restrictions that we'll sign at closing if this moves forward. But, we can address that with the document.
Other questions for Mr. Spangler? Any discussion from the members of the commission? Is there a motion to approve the request of the COA as submitted? I'm sorry, not as, with,
This is a preliminary plat.
Yeah.
It's a preliminary plat review, and it will have to come back to you with a final plat review for the items that you've identified.
Yeah, I make a motion that we approve this with, as long as there's an easement for that. And I believe it's a sanitary, I can't really tell that.
In one of those, I think the technicians had 4 or 5 comments that I noted that we should make the change as well.
okay.
That's my motion.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay. Ms. Quich, second. Additional discussion? If not, would you call the roll?
Sure, Ms. Quach? Aye. Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Weaver?
Aye.
Mr. Pennington?
Aye.
Mr. Sproles?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schuman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, the next order of business is certificate of appropriateness, Doug Super Car Wash, Turnhart Acquisition Corporation, 2506 South Front Street, Richlands, Virginia, 24641. Owner Connor Williams, Snyder Sons, Inc., representative, certificate of appropriateness for signage located at 140 Cook Street, Abingdon, Virginia, 24210, tax map ID, parentheses, 021-8-9A, in parentheses. Staff report.
Yeah, so Douglas R. Ratliff, owner, and Connor Williams of Snyder Signs Incorporated, representative, have requested approval of the certificate of appropriateness for a new monument sign located at 140 Cook Street, Abingdon. The proposed monument sign structure will consist of a masonry and brick base, a corrugated metal center accent, and fabricated aluminum caps. Centered on the face of the monument sign structure will be a round logo, face, and silhouette lit, and an electric message board directly below the round logo. The property is within the General Business District, B2, and is under the Meadows Restricted Covenants and Reciprocal Access Easement Agreement. So some background, as we've all seen this property before, there has been no previous sign at the proposed location. The area is a newly developed part of the town and is currently in development still. Access to the site will continue to be Cook Street. For staff findings, the proposed monument sign structure will measure 10 feet high by 8 feet. In the Meadows Restricted Covenants and Reciprocal Access Easement Agreement, monument sign structures can have a maximum height of 15 feet and a maximum width of 10 feet. Materials used to construct the sign structure and round logo include masonry brick, custom painted aluminum, white .117 acrylic, and 3M vinyl graphics. The round logo sign has a square footage of 16 square feet. The allowable square footage for a sign in the B2 zone is 60 square feet. The electric message board will measure 2 feet by 5 inches high and 6 feet 5 inches wide, equaling 15.5 square feet. In the Meadows Restricted Covenants and Reciprocal Access Easement Agreement, electronic message boards can occupy up to 50% of the sign cabinet's overall square footage. The electronic message board sign occupies roughly 5% of the sign cabinet's overall square footage. The square footage for both the proposed monument structure, round logo sign, and electronic message board meets both the Meadows Restrictive Covenants and Reciprocal Access Easement Agreement, Sections 2-A-3, and the Abington's General Sign Standards.
Are there questions? Is there anybody here to speak to this?
Yes.
You're welcome to.
Good afternoon, everyone. Connor Williams with Snyder Signs. If you have any questions on signage,
Okay.
please answer.
I have a question that's based on my ignorance here. The rendering of the sign shows a brick base that's a different color than the other signs on the property. Is that okay, or should it match the dark brick, such as the one in the background?
It's kind of up to interpretation, and kind of just, it's an earth tone brick, so it matches the guidelines, so it's kind of up to your interpretation of it, but it does meet the code.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when I'm looking at what was submitted, there appears to be two signs. Is there just the one? Is this the only one?
There was a nighttime and a
Yeah,
daytime
there's a
rendering.
nighttime and a daytime,
Yeah.
just to show you the contrast
Oh.
with the lighting, yeah.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments?
It is definitely a different color though than the building, the dark brick color that's on the building and the other ones in there, so.
Would it be a problem to match the brick on the building for the bottom part of the
I
sign?
don't believe that would be an issue. If anything, it actually may be a little easier for us, honestly. So if we need to change the brick color, then I'm sure that's something we can do.
Okay.
Are you talking about, Kenny, are you talking about in terms of the full sign, or are you talking about just
No,
the bottom?
Just the bottom.
Just the base.
Just the base?
Yeah,
Just the base.
And then make this, maybe that makes it even a little more,
The base then would match the rest of the building, and then the other part would be what you see there.
yeah.
Is there a motion to,
Are they gonna be happy with, I mean, if the changes in terms of a formal, are we ready to make it a formal decision
well,
based on the changes that may or may not be?
well, now this is different from what we did last time.
Right.
This is only the sign.
I know.
But this does meet the guidelines.
Right. But if there, I guess the question is if it's easy enough to match the brick to the building, and he's saying that's not a problem, that I think that gets to Mr. Weaver's question. And if it's,
So is.
Well, I think the intent was to have uniformity throughout the full development, and the stone that's shown here appears to me to match the stone on the other sign, and also the stone on the Holiday Inn, so I don't have an issue with the stone, but I don't know, I just sort of feel like the brick base should match the other.
You had mentioned the Holiday Inn. It was actually the stonework I was going off of for the color there.
Is it, so that is brick on the bottom, it's just a light color, okay. I don't know, I think it looked weird with red brick on the bottom, but
Well,
I don't know. I have no problem with.
You prefer it to be stone on the bottom and then brick piers?
no, I think he's just talking about color.
Oh.
No, I mean, you're used to, when you see a building, it's gonna have stone and then brick. If it has anything, you're not gonna have red brick with stone on top. Because the stone is more the foundation looking stuff, so that's all I was saying. I personally think it looked weird with brick on bottom, but I'm no expert.
I guess what I keep going back to is basically, is it in compliance with the code? And if it's in compliance with the code, then that's really up to the applicant as to the colors. I agree that maybe the intent of the agreement, of the overline agreement, would have been to have had everything somewhat of a uniform nature in there, but
We're overstepping.
it could be overstepping.
Well,
I mean,
if someone were to make a motion, could they just say, we approve it, but we ask you to consider other option for the brick or something, I don't know.
if you look at the Holiday Inn in the background of the one, if you'll scroll to the,
when that,
well, it was actually part of the,
Part of the actual image.
yeah.
yeah, and the stone here does match the stone on the Holiday Inn.
Yes, sir. The stone does.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's, scroll up.
But I think what Gabe's saying is, it does fall in line with what the requirements are of
Yes, sir.
the subdivision. So I think if,
And that was our sticking point last
well,
time.
right,
Is it being-
yeah.
So I think since it meets the guidelines,
Do you want to make that in the form of a motion?
sure.
Okay,
I make a motion that we approve it as he has it on the screen.
okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Wilson, any additional discussion?
I I just want to say that the little spaceship guy is cool.
Thank you.
That's pretty,
Thank
that's
you.
pretty neat.
I appreciate that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Would you call the roll?
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Weaver?
Aye.
Mr. Pennington?
Aye.
Mr. Sproles?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schuman?
Aye.
That's it.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next order of business is certificate of appropriate National Bank of Blacksburg, 102 Wall Street, Abingdon, Virginia, 24210. William and Shirley Coyano, 1370 Crystal Court, San Diego, California, 95127, owner, certificate of appropriateness for signage located at 102 Wall Street, Abingdon, Virginia, tax map ID, parentheses 011-8-22, in parentheses staff report.
The National Bank of Abington, owner/applicant, and Trish Thompson of Skyway Outdoor Incorporated representative have requested approval of an entrance corridor certificate of appropriateness for a monument/freestanding sign located at 102 Wall Street Southwest. The property is within the Central Business Zoning District of B3. So some background, the proposed monument sign structure and sign faces will replace the existing monument sign structure and sign faces. Access to the site will continue to be East Main Street and Wall Street Southwest. Staff findings, the existing base and sign cabinet of the monument sign structure is painted a cream color. The sign cabinet has rounded corners. The existing sign faces have a white background with burgundy lettering and orange used for lettering and design elements. The existing sign is located near the intersection of West Main Street and Wall Streets. The proposed base and sign cabinet of the monument sign structure for the new sign will be pre-finished black. The sign cabinet will have squared off corners, and the background for the new sign faces will be the same burgundy color seen on the existing sign. Orange will be used in the same manner as the existing sign. White will be used for other lettering found on the sign faces, and the proposed sign measures 8 feet by 4 feet, equaling 32 square feet. The proposed sign will remain internally illuminated using LEDs, and the proposed sign meets all necessary criteria for a freestanding sign located in the B3 zone according to the town zoning code. So pretty much the only difference in the sign is the face, and then the main reason why we had to bring them was the corners went from rounded to squared, so it kind of increased the square footage minimally, but they do have to go through again just because they changed the shape of it.
Any questions? Additional discussion? If not, is there a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness?
So move.
Okay, Mr. Weaver, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Pennington, any additional discussion? If not, would you call the roll?
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Weaver?
Aye.
Mr. Pennington?
Aye.
Mr. Sproles?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schuman?
Next order of business is certificate of appropriateness, Abingdon Olive Oil Company, 335 Cumming Street, Abingdon, Virginia, 24210. KCC St. Louis owner, certificate of appropriateness for fencing located at 335 Cumming Street, Abingdon, Virginia, 24210. Tax map ID, parentheses 20-1-20 in parentheses. Staff report.
She's not here, and I think you all probably want to have a discussion with her. So I'm going to suggest that you table it. We did talk to her even today, but I suggest you at least table it, and if she shows up before our presentation, then we could bring her back. But I don't suggest that you make any motions or move forward
Okay.
without that.
Now, one thing, I just like, right now, she's asking for something, but she hasn't done what she did that she was required to do with regard to the, fencing around her trash receptacle.
That
So,
is correct.
just from a personal standpoint, I think if she does come, we need to make sure that she that we reiterate, maybe even in the form of a motion, that she do what she was approved to do before we approve anything further.
That is correct, and she is currently under a compliance order. She's been slowly ticking off the things, but she still has not put the fence and screened her garbage, so you are correct.
Okay.
I have a question, and forgive this if it's redundant or what have you. The signage that is on the fencing, has that come before us?
Yes.
It did, and we have actually, Dave and I have probably listened to the re-listened to the entire hearing that we had her at. We looked back through the motions, we tried to figure out, you know, anything we could about that, but basically the only motion that was made was that she could install a fence and put a sign, and the sign meets the square footage of the underlying zoning. The fence that she chose to install is definitely not attractive, and it creates almost a billboard-like display for what she has. But the size, the square footage of the actual sign is correct, so it is a
Okay, well, I
bit
mean, that was,
tough. She might.
you hit upon what I was getting at is.
She's here.
She's here. But it looked
Terrible.
very large.
We're at your item, so.
You are?
Uh-huh.
Oh, good, okay, hello.
So I guess we can get started then.
Okay.
Per item.
All right. So looking at the certificate of appropriateness, you mentioned that's a staff report.
Casey St. Louis applicant/owner has requested approval of an entrance quarter certificate of appropriateness for fencing around her property and a pole to be placed in the center of the driveway located on 355 Cummings Street. The property is within the Office and Institutional Zoning District, or OI. So some background, the building that the Avenue Olive Oil Company is in was the Town of Abington Tourist Center at one time, and access to the site will continue to be Cummings Street. Staff findings. The applicant is proposing to install black metal fencing at designated locations as seen on your plat around their property, and that'll be in the purple sections on the plat that you'll see there. That's where she's looking to install the fencing. At the south end of the west parking lot, the applicant is proposing to install two 18-foot sections of fencing with an 18-foot gate in relatively the same style as the fencing proposed. Other sections of fencing will be installed along the northern and southern boundary lines as highlighted in the purple on the plat. From the ground to the top of the fencing will measure 5 feet, 5.7 inches tall. The fencing is in an ornate style and is termed, according to the applicant's attachment material, a London fence. In addition to fencing, a removable metal pole will be installed in the middle of the drive at the north entrance to the property as seen on the plat. During business hours, the gate and pole will need to be removed/open for customer/emergency personnel to easily access the property in case emergency does arise. Staff recommended conditions: a specific date of completion be set for both the fencing proposed here today and fencing for the dumpster located on the property.
Questions for staff?
Any questions?
Ms. St. Louis, do you want to address the commission?
I just have one question. Chris, could you read that, Dave, could you read that one last part you just read about the entrance, the north entrance?
About the pole.
About the pole? I just said during business hours, the gate and the pole will need to be removed/open for customers/emergency personnel to easily access the property.
Okay, so for the most part, that pole needs to stay there. That's the big problem and the reason that I need to put this in, because so many people come through there thinking it's still the Welcome Center. The pole needs to be removable, so when a tour bus comes, group comes, they're gonna need to come in that way because the buses can't enter in that lower. It's difficult for them. They can go out. It's hard for them to come in. You can see where the bus spot is right there. And then delivery truck is a 16-wheeler. So we actually did 2 runs on this to make sure that, you guys are all looking at this, to make sure this is where the 18-foot is and then a slider this way. And so he needed to be able to clear right here, as would a bus. So, but for the most part, we're gonna try to keep that pole there because that's the problem. People keep coming in there tearing up the
Have
roadway.
you spoken to the fire department?
Yeah,
Because they
that's-
will not want a post there. They will want a gate with an ox lock on it.
So one of the things that we probably just didn't mention in there because we thought that you were willing to remove it during business hours, is that's the only access into your property that's a true legal access. Below on this southern parcel, that's actually just an easement for access. So we actually can't have that pole and the fence closed during business hours.
But it sounds to me like what we have is a submission that staff is reporting on, which is not the same thing as what the owner wants to have. So I think that in order for us to do what it is we need to do, you need to submit what you want specifically to staff for staff review.
I thought we did that. I mean,
Evidently,
didn't we do that? And you come out and walk and,
You did submit that, but we're not supporting the pole. We had thought that you were indicating that the pole and the fence would be open during business hours.
well, the fence on this end so customers can come in. But it's where the pole is being placed that's the problem. I mean, because people just think they're coming to the memorial park through there. RVs,
how do
anybody, they
customers
come in, they
actually-
fill up, huh?
How do customers actually, if the pole is there, how are they accessing your property? Off of Cumming Street
Yes.
on the south side?
Which is the way they usually do. I mean, often, my customers are coming in down there. I'm watching other traffic that's coming in across that road, and it's getting a pothole in it. I mean, it's just tearing up now, the town stopped doing it after we had our conversation, because town vehicles were coming through there, the garbage trucks and the people, they use that bathroom for, I guess, utility. I don't know what they use it for, but the town trucks come in there often.
Does the town have an easement across the backside?
The town has an easement along here. Do you think you could turn the lights down just a touch? There's just like kind of glare. I'll try to zoom in a little bit so you can see it. Essentially, when we sold the property, the easement that we created was between, that runs right along here.
Mhm.
If you can see it, it's the dark line. And so our easement allows us to access the bathrooms and, people to access the park and have the parking lot here. And then the easement allows her customers to access this driveway and then exit through here.
So that's a property
Or
line.
inner,
That is the property line.
That's a property
where
line.
the blue thing is, yeah, that's the property line.
So
And then
anything
the
below the property
geothermal
line
runs.
belongs to the town.
Correct.
And you probably have a right of entry.
Yeah, and my geothermal runs down in the field right there, so that's another issue that's happening because they put in parking spots and there's only one place that they drive through to get onto the memorial park. So when they bring in that 6-ton rock for that boot that just was put in, an 800-pound boot, they're going right over my geothermal constantly. It
I would
too
like
is
to correct
causing some
that.
divots.
That, they did not drive over the geothermal lines. We created they went through on the side of the parking lot and between those, but they did not drive over the geothermal lines.
If they're,
I don't know how you can't drive over it. They come,
if they're at the depth they're supposed to be, it shouldn't matter. I mean, we got all kind of parking lots on top of geothermal. It shouldn't affect it
well,
at
it's
all.
not a parking lot though. It's just grass that keeps getting,
Yeah,
I mean, I have
if it's
pictures
got
I
3
can
feet
show
of
you.
cover
It's
like it should,
it's
you'd be
something
all
we're
right.
looking into. Say what, 3 feet under? Well, it's dipping though, because they're heavy trucks. It's down, it's gone down at least a foot. And then water fills in where those, I mean, that's another issue, that needs to be addressed at some point, but not today. But yes, I have that easement because of that in the right of way. as do
Okay,
you
but I guess
guys.
the underlying issue is if you'll scroll down, right there, that's your legal access.
I mean, I
coming
don't
from
have a
Cumming
problem,
Street.
right.
If that's what you've submitted as far as having a pole there during business hours, then I don't think that can be permitted from a fire standpoint, from multiple regulatory agencies. So,
Well, if that's the only thing holding it up, then I'll take it out during business hours. If it's the business hour element that you guys are concerned about.
So I just went through this at William King, because they wanted to put up some bollards like that, posts, to prevent cars from going certain places. And Tim Estes, the fire chief, came up there last week to meet me on Monday, and they don't want posts. They want, if you're gonna do it, you can do it with a gate, but you have to have the Knox box lock, so they can get a key to open the gates. So I would say you need to go back and talk to the fire department, and then also put the screening around the dumpster, and then come back and revisit
Well, the
this.
screening around the dumpster, that's, I mean, depending on where I'm allowed to put that fence determines on where that dumpster goes, down in that lower left blue line. Right now, it's kind of loose. When Mayana and Gabe and I all got together, it was gonna go in the farthest point, right here. But now with the issue that we have, I don't know, what you guys are gonna allow me to do. And so the placement of that dumpster becomes part of the issue of where this fence gets to go.
It,
You can put a fence as long as it's on your property line or on your property, it should be fine. And if it's sliding,
Well, I thought so too, but I think you had thought there might be a question about that. That's why I got put on this.
Sure. For, as far as a COA, basically fencing, landscaping, and those types of things, you all do have a say in the design of them. So what you would be looking at tonight is whether or not you would allow this type of fencing that she's proposed and in the specific location she's proposed. And I think what concerns me is just, if you are not wanting to remove the pole, are we going to have to go out there and do compliance case after compliance case?
Yeah, no, I mean,
or-
I'll remove the pole. If that's the only issue, that's gonna be the same thing that we would need every morning to open that rolling gate anyway. So whoever's doing that can remove the pole.
Okay.
Our hours are 11 to 6. That's what you mean, right, during our
but you
shop
can't have a
hours?
pole.
Huh?
You can't have a pole.
Would the pole be necessary if you've got the
So if
gate?
you're,
It needs something, and
if,
so,
if there's a place to turn around for,
yeah, I mean, it definitely needs something, and a chain was ill-advised because there's some accident that a kid got in with a chain and a bicycle. So that's where the pole came into play.
what I'm saying, if the place catches on fire at midnight,
The
and
pole's
there's a
still
pole
there.
sitting there, well, it doesn't do the fire department any good. So,
Okay.
I mean, I'm where you are. I think we have to get something more definitive, or we're gonna approve something that's, or potentially approve something that we shouldn't be approving. I mean, I appreciate the fact you say, well, I just won't have the pole. I think we have to have something more definitive, than we have, at least in my view. I'm not comfortable.
So
that we
you're
have
saying,
something-
what's the Oxnard box, is that what you said?
Knox.
A Knox box, so that's something that, the fire department has a code to too, if they
It's like,
needed to get in?
it's like a little thing, it costs $50. It's on the front of any store you go to.
Uh-huh.
Little box that big, and the fire department has a key. They open it, and it's got the key to whatever they want to open inside it.
I got
So
you.
it's just like a little safe deposit box for them to get the key to open your gate, or your building, or whatever.
So it would be a gate instead of a
It's
post.
typically-
Well,
for
I'll talk to
building.
him, I mean, I'm curious if they gotta get out and unlock and do that, could they get out and lift the pole? I
He
mean,
specifically said no for
For
William
you?
King.
Okay.
So I assume it's
We'll go
similar,
check
but
that out.
it would need to be checked with them.
Okay. That's doable. So the other thing about that dumpster down there is, you guys all know Emmett Erie. He's looking for more parking for the Memorial Park. And is wanting to potentially, the discussion is, purchase some of those spots down there. And again, if I put my dumpster in and the enclosure all around it, then that will be like wasted energy and time if that property gets sold. But the advice was to come and talk to you guys right now about, you know, where that sliding thing needs to go.
I can tell you right now that to subdivide your lot into another smaller lot is probably not gonna happen. You know, if somebody wanted to lease your parking spaces, they could lease that from you, but we'd have to have a road access into an interior parcel, so it'd be really tough to subdivide your parcel and get another parcel out of that without a public road going through it.
Isn't that a public road that's, well,
It's
you know,
not,
it's,
yeah.
oh, yeah. Emmett wants that.
Yeah,
I just need protection on the people not coming into, mostly tearing up the gravel in the driveway in the parking lot. That's my issue right there. Well, and the RVs can fill up with water. That's a little bit of an issue.
so I guess your request, I just wanna try to bring us back to here. The request is for fencing along your property boundary. What the planning commission has purview over is the type of fencing which you've proposed. And then they are not in favor of this post in the middle of the driveway. So if you were to want to put a fence on the end, that would be something you can, you know, talk to them tonight. As for the other items, the dumpster enclosure, I mean, basically the moment the dumpster was put on the parcel, wherever, we needed to have it screened. So that's really what we're struggling with.
And that's what this commission approved, was
Correct.
it not?
Correct.
So, if I'm understanding correctly, I need to go talk to the fire person first about the pole? You guys aren't necessarily saying absolutely no pole, you're saying I've gotta check with the fire
Comes under
department.
the domain of the fire department.
Okay,
And I think you would, once you have that discussion, that information needs to get back to staff so that when we look at this, we have all the facts in front of us, so that when we make the, assuming we approve it, that we know what we've approved and when we can expect it to be completed. Is that?
So when were you intending to put the fencing up? Like now, or what was your timeline on the fencing?
it kinda depended on what you guys said and if I was gonna have to do more with it. I mean,
Okay.
I honestly wasn't expecting you guys to go, yay, yippee, and walk out of here. I felt that there probably needed to be more due diligence with the whole thing.
Okay, well, the next meeting will be December 19th, so if you
Now,
want,
that
if you
might
would
be-
like them to table it.
Yeah, let's table it, but it might need to be tabled till January at this point, because
Okay.
this is my super busy time.
Okay.
Thank goodness it is busy. And so, that's gonna be tough to do, but just as soon as, that's the only reason now that, well, that and the guy walked off the job, is the only reason to, that the dumpster walls aren't up yet. We've got some of that product, bought, just hasn't been done.
So, do you all wanna make a motion of when the dumpster needs to be enclosed as a separate compliance item?
I mean, I think, you know.
But it was already approved though, so.
It is approved. It was my understanding that you had a year in order to take care of that and get that done when you guys approve something. I mean, you guys know the house. It's one thing after another. A million things are going wrong with it, and so we're trying to get through as quickly as we can.
Well, one of the things I think is if you want to limit the traffic and you have a dumpster there which is unprotected, you potentially have people driving there to put refuse in the dumpster, so it would seem to me that
Well-
you certainly don't want to wait, I don't think, to complete the enclosure. I mean,
I know that you said that at the last meeting too, but we aren't watching people put things into that dumpster. I'm not seeing that at all. I'm just seeing them come in and drive on those spots and then go down to where the Memorial Park shelters are and stuff. But, I mean, we have a lot of trash, so we just aren't noticing that it's being used for somebody else's dumping purposes.
you know, I guess,
So COAs, when you all make a motion and you approve a COA, they have a year to complete, or, complete the project. Normally, that's a facade improvement, et cetera. Here, what we're struggling with is, yes, you would basically have a year to put a dumpster out, but the moment the dumpster is out there, we need it enclosed. And I know you had indicated that you wanted to do a concrete pad, and so I guess we're struggling, with that being completed.
And what is the main reason for the delay?
For the dumpster, where that fence goes, I guess you guys needed to approve where that gate goes. And I wouldn't have known that that was a problem when that dumpster thing was put in there anyway. We had no idea that there would be that kind of traffic coming through.
Well, but that's where it goes back to your point, we're voting on something that doesn't have a specific.
Yeah. So, I mean, I understand, we're not voting today, right? We're
well,
just,
Well, but even going back to your point with that, when we voted for that, you're saying, well, it depends on where the fence, well, the fence wasn't part of,
no,
that
I mean,
particular
but I am
discussion,
glad
so-
we didn't already put a cement thing out there and the dumpster at the farthest edge, because
Well,
this
you-
would have come into play now.
You're not gonna be able to put the dumpster next to the fence, because then the truck that picks the dumpster up won't be able to get it.
Well, we've talked with that guy and talked about how he could pull in and the way he could get in there, and he too, I mean, it's just like a 16-wheeler. He too would be able to go out through the, he comes in, just like all the other trucks come in, they come in through that drive. And that's the way we're observing him
Well,
come
if he
in.
can
I
do
went out
it,
and talked to him.
then why not put it down next to where the fence is gonna be?
Yeah, that's what I want to do, absolutely, but now it's like, where does the fence go? That's what we're here for, the placement of where that fence can go. And if you guys are saying it can go right on that property line, awesome, then it's just a matter of
It can
figuring
go
out the
anywhere
other
from
piece of the
property
puzzle.
line up.
I would advise setting it inside your property line.
Mhm.
So any maintenance, any issues, anything of that nature are clearly defined.
I feel like that's something when you come out that we can like get very specific before any posts are drilled or put in the ground or anything. That'd be the right idea.
So are we tabling this evening? Pending further discussions with the fire.
Okay? Sounds good.
do we need a motion to table this, or?
It's, I do think it's good to put a motion in place to table it, just so that we're on the record.
I make a motion, we table the item until we have further details relative to any obstructions, whether it's fencing, bollards, what have you, situated on the property.
Great.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, there's a second. Any additional discussion? If not, would you call the roll?
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Weaver?
Aye.
Mr. Pennington?
Aye.
Mr. Sproles?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schuman?
Aye.
All right.
Okay, so it's tabled till further notice. Okay,
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you, you guys.
the next order of business is public hearing. The Town of Abingdon Planning Commission will hold a public hearing on November 28, 2022, beginning at 5:30 PM in the Arthur Campbell Room of the Town Hall, 133 West Main Street Avenue, Virginia, on proposed comprehensive amendments to the town zoning and subdivision ordinances. The town zoning and subdivision ordinances are both proposed to be holistically repealed and replaced with a new consolidated zoning and subdivision ordinance that contains the subdivision ordinance as Article 10 within it. Okay, so before we open the public hearing, I don't know if there's anybody here to address it, but before we open that, Deanna, would you give us sort of a timeline on where everything is so that we get that to record?
Sure, so, we do have the Berkeley group with us tonight. We have Rebecca, who you all have been most associated with, and she's online and will be giving you the presentation. And then we also have Kelly, who's here in person, who will be assisting. There's obviously not a lot of public. I will tell you that we put an advertisement twice in the newspaper. We put it out on Facebook. So if anything, I mean, we did have quite a few people attend the open house in June, so I guess most of their concerns were handled. And they'll talk a little bit about it, but just to give you all a history of how much work you have each put into this. The kickoff was in March 1st of 2021. Then you proceeded to have stakeholder meetings in April, and you had a public input workshop in April as well of 2021. There was a public survey that went through April, and then there were drafts that were worked on basically from April 2021 to January. As of January 2022, when you all really started putting in some heavy-duty lifting and working on this, we had work sessions in January, we had a work session in March, we had a work session in May, we had an open house in June, we had a work session in August, and a work session in September. And so tonight, in November, this is a culmination of all the effort, all the work you've put in, all the deep dives that we've taken into very specific topics, to have a document that, one, you should be very proud of, and two, has had your hands in it, and we've looked at topics, and we understand what we're going into. So tonight, the Berkeley group will lead us through a public hearing. Perhaps, since we've heard a lot of it before, maybe a shorter version of the presentation since we have no public. And then Town Council will also hear this on December 5th. We'll basically put all of this out again in this next week so that we can see if we can garner any more public input. And then Town Council will have its final reading in January of 2023. So Kenny had asked me to sort of give a little background of how hard you all have worked, and I think it is an impressive looking document, taking us from like 1973 to 2023. So without further ado, I'll let you all take over.
Rebecca, can you hear us?
Can you hear us, Rebecca?
I can hear you, thank you. And I assume you all can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, great. Yeah, there was a little while there I couldn't hear anything, and I was in panic mode over here, so I'm glad we got that figured out. And I can see a few of the planning commissioners there. Thank you guys for your hard work on this. It is to be commended how much effort and time you guys have put into this. It's looking really great, and I think it's going to be really usable for the town. I think it's going to be a great thing. I can see kind of half of the room, but I think Diana said there's no public there.
That's correct. Correct.
Okay. So yes, I will be fast then, because I know you guys have been through this and read it over and over again. I'll kind of even leave it up to you. Do you want me to do a brief kind of overview of some of the changes, specifically maybe some of the most recent changes? Or you can, we can skip that and you can open up public hearing if you want to do that.
I think it's fine to go ahead and open the public hearing. I think we absolutely have to open it. And I'll do that right now. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing and ask if there is anybody from the public who wants to make a statement. I guess if not, we just close the public hearing. But we will have at least had one. So hearing nothing from the public, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. I guess I'm a little surprised that there's no comment. I thought there would be some.
I think like Diana said, that we did have a fair number. We had the open house in that room there, and it actually, many of you were there too, and there were some public that came to that, and so hopefully maybe they had their questions answered and people have reviewed it and don't have any concerns. So hopefully that's a good sign there. Do you all have any questions or anything that you would all, like to discuss related to what's been drafted and what's before you tonight?
Questions? Comments? I think we've certainly been through it a number of times. And, you know, I think it's a vast improvement from what was there. And I think the amount of time that the commission has spent and the people here, I think we've taken it very seriously. And I think it's going to be a good product that's going to stand the test of time, at least in my mind. And then Donna, you all get to deal with it a week from today.
I would assume that there's nothing that we've not discussed of any recent.
I don't think so. The last piece that you all worked on really hard was the cottage housing. And I know that Mr. Johnson even agreed to work with the developer to come up with language, so you all saw that, and I didn't receive any additional comments, so, you know.
Nothing.
Yeah, so there has not been another topic that you all indicated was still a concern.
Let me ask you a question relative to amending the ordinance itself. I can't recall actually seeing any of the provisions in here relative to amendment. You know, they may be, but one of the points where I'm going with this is that this document, like any other document, is a fluid document and will need to be revised as we go forward. What we've done, it still amazes me that the town of Abingdon has a subdivision ordinance that's 200 and some pages long. You know, I guess I truly didn't appreciate, you know, where we were or what we had, but be that as it may, you know, if this body or other bodies, staff, what have you, come across instances, provisions that simply don't work, then I think it's incumbent upon us to revise that, to get it to work to the best of our ability.
Wouldn't there have to be like a text amendment offered? The way I understand it, be a text amendment offered, it would go through staff.
Correct.
Staff would make a recommendation, but also, if that was the case, then it would be advertised.
Yes, sir.
So
We'd have to go
people
back
from-
through.
So people, once it was out there, then you would have an additional public hearing to go through the text amendment, and then the planning commission would act. And so that could actually happen basically at any time as far as.
You are correct.
As long as that staff had time to review it and that there was appropriate time to advertise the public hearing.
Yes, sir. I just, you know, hopefully staff and the respective committees with the town, whether it's HPRB, this body, if there is a provision that simply is not in the best interest or needs to be tweaked, then, you know, there's no hesitation about doing that. That, you know, this is not set in concrete. This is a working document.
Now, I think you could have that work either way. You could have a situation where, you know, there was a tweak that was required and then we would approve that. I can also see a situation where there would be a recommendation for a text amendment that we did not think should be changed, and we would have the opportunity to say, no, we don't think it should be changed.
Correct.
Either way, I think, but I mean, I think that, and the other thing is, because of Dylan's rule, there'll be times when we're gonna have to change things to stay in compliance with the state law, whether or not we think the state law was adequate or not. Similar to what happened with our entrance corridor overlay.
One of the points that would have probably been in Rebecca's presentation is that we recommend at a minimum an annual review process to take into account any legislative changes in state code, and that can be to get on a recurring basis and have that as part of your planning staff's workload, you know, and you have great planning staff here that does stay on top of those changes. And just for the record, there is a section in the zoning ordinance on zoning text amendments that outlines that process and outlines the public hearing process as well. That is in Article 3 under permits and applications, so that is outlined in the revised draft.
Any questions, comments? I don't think we actually have to take any action tonight, other than have had the public hearing.
We
Since
would
the-
be asking for a recommendation, so a recommendation to advance this to the town council. So the planning commission could, your actions would be recommend approval or recommend with amendment, and we would like to know what those specific amendments are. If there are editorial changes, we can also certainly make those non-substantive changes.
Well, if there are no suggested changes, then is there a motion to recommend approval to the town council for their public hearing on December the 5th?
I'll move. I will make the motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any additional discussion? If not, would you call the roll?
Ms. Quach? Aye. Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Weaver?
Aye.
Mr. Pennington?
Aye.
Mr. Sproles?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schuman?
Aye. And we thank you all for all your work.
Thank you very much for having us here. It's been a pleasure. Rebecca, any final
Thanks so much.
words?
Yes, and you know, I've worked with you so long, it's been a pleasure working with you. Thank you so much for all the effort and work that you guys put into this.
Thank
It's
you.
been a
Thank
pleasure.
you. All right. Old business not on the agenda. There's a note about 231 West Main Street roof replacement. Is that something we need to do, or?
It's just a waiver, yeah. We like to put the waivers in so you see what else we're doing on the side.
Any announcements or anything? I know that Art.
Oh, if I could, I'm sorry, I'm Mike Cochran, the town manager, if you haven't met me. I just want to mention, since the last meeting, Mayana has gotten a slight job change, and so I promoted her to the assistant town manager. So she'll be continuing with a lot of the roles that she had, and then we've got a developmental plan in place for Gabe, because he's a really smart guy and very capable, and I'm sure you've seen some of the work he's done, so. I announced at the last council meeting, but not everybody watches the council meetings as much as they should, but we can always tape if you just want to go back and watch them. But that said, I just want to let you all know that you won't lose her, she's moving upstairs, but she'll still be available, and I think she's done an awesome job. And to the Berkeley group, wow, I mean, I've been in local government for 32 years, and I've never seen a community this size, this far advanced with what they're doing, staying ahead of code, because normally code just gets thicker and thicker and thicker, and no one ever takes the time to go in and pay attention to the weeds like this. And so I thank you all for your service with that, but I just wanted to mention an announcement for my honor. So, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no additional business, is there a motion that we adjourn?
Yes, I'll move that we adjourn.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.